OKRaw.com. Today we have another exciting episode for you. I'm here with a friend that I've known literally, how long have I known you, Tim? Like over 25 years now. I've known this guy. This is Dr. Tim Trader, who is a naturopathic doctor as well as has a PhD in nutrition. And so I want to bring him to you guys because he's been in a few video interviews in the past, but I really wanted to bring you guys him alive so you guys could learn more about him as well as some of what he's learned over the last 34 years being on a raw vegan diet for healing himself, as you guys will learn in a minute. So, Dr. Tim, the first question is, why did you get into a raw vegan diet?
First of all, thank you for having me. It's great to be with my friend John. Always, it's great. Why did I get into a raw vegan diet? Pretty simple, but it's a long story. I started off life with asthma and allergies. I was allergic to about everything, and I was growing up in Los Angeles, and smoke and smog and things like that were ravaged my body pretty badly. I was in the hospital. I was in the emergency room as a child, sometimes weekly, being taken care of. So I went and did a lot of things just trying to stay normal. But then when I was about in my early 20s, I started looking into some alternatives and stuff, but I was also looking for answers. I looked all around, and I ended up going to medical school, but I was also doing a lot of alternative stuff, and I ended up having to drop out because of the stress of doing things differently from everybody else. Eventually went to naturopathy school, and then eventually that wasn't working as fully as I wanted. Oh yeah, I got some benefits, but I ended up going to nutrition school and getting a PhD there. And when I was there, they said, we have this guy that's really bothering us, so would you help take him off our hands? And I said, sure. So I talked to this guy, and his name was T.C. Fry.
Most people won't know who T.C. Fry is.
Yeah.
Because he's old school.
He's old school natural hygiene. But he was a very big at the time of the 80s and into the 90s. And I got to talk to him. And he gave me a box full of literature and books and magazines, and I read in it where a lady got rid of her asthma by eating a raw food diet. It got my attention. So after a couple of years of actually studying it, and trying to find out what was going on, I became a raw foodist. September 6, 1990. And I haven't looked back. My allergies went away for the most part, not perfectly, but I had never been able to eat an orange as a child, and I started eating raw, and I could eat whole oranges. Not just a slice, but a whole orange. That was such a treat. When I was 19, watermelon closed my throat shut, and I loved watermelon. But I couldn't eat it because I had an allergic reaction to it. Well, now I started eating watermelon. Of course, I was eating it alone, and I could eat it, and I could enjoy it. This told me I really wanted to do this kind of thing. But the big thing was my asthma. I threw away my inhaler and I have not had an asthma attack in 34 years. That was a big thing for me. And so it worked. It was giving me the nutrition that I knew I needed. It was giving me the foods that I loved but had never been able to eat. So I went for it, and it started a whole thing that's been going on for the rest of my life, for more than half of my life.
Wow, Tim. I mean, like Tim, I also had asthma and allergies, also had eczema, and I started actually raw vegan in 1995, so a few years after you. But also, of course, I never had to have an inhaler. I would have the tablets you would take, because I think when I had asthma, like, they didn't have inhalers yet, I don't know. Or they didn't want me to prescribe them to me because it was like, they knew it was really bad, like the steroids. So I never got those. But like, I've been able to give that up as well, and my allergies, of course, gotten dramatically better as well. So I mean, and you know, these days I think a little differently about raw foods, and that's why I'm going to ask Tim a lot of questions today so you guys can learn more about his background and his beliefs around raw foods. Because one of the things I like, honestly, guys, about Tim is that, like me, he also looks into science, but even goes deeper than I go. Because he actually helps people out there like you know, heal when other people tell you guys and you haven't gotten healing from other people that you've gotten help from. You know, like there's a lot of people online that all say, come to my group and do a long juice fast and then you're healed and all these things, which I think is just hogwash, because everything's not healed by a juice fast. Anyways, let's ask Tim some fun questions to learn more about this guy that knows lots about raw foods and helping people getting better. All right, Tim, so the first question I have for you is, what version of the raw vegan diet do you practice yourself and encourage other people to do, and do you think that's the only way to get healthy?
Do I think it's the only way to get healthy? No. Is it the best thing I've found for me? Yes. There are some people who can't go raw for different reasons. It could be ideological, it could be social, it could be a number of reasons. There's a lot of reasons out there. And the idea is to do the best you can and be real with yourself. That's very important. What kind of diet do I follow? I follow low fat, high fruit, not exclusively fruit, but high fruit, raw diet. I have over 3 pounds of greens, leafy greens, every day. I try to get in great variety. I also try to make sure I optimize my nutrition. I use things like a chronometer on my daily, and I suggest the people I work with, who I call health partners. I don't believe in patients. I believe that we are partners in creating health. And when I work with them, they find that the more they know about what they're eating, the better they get. So it's about optimizing everything. So that's pretty much how I do things. I get the nutrients that I need, and then I test and make sure that I'm absorbing and utilizing. And testing is such a big part of what I do and what I do with the people I work with.
I think, Tim, that really sets you apart, like testing, right? I constantly encourage you guys to get tested. And even if you don't have a naturopathic doctor to order your blood test, right? I have videos linked down below so how you guys can get your own blood test for as low as $5 plus a draw fee. I think the prices went up now. But I encourage you guys to get tested so you know where you're at and you could adjust accordingly. Of course, it's better to have a doctor on your side like Dr. Tim, who can read the blood test, that will know that some things on your blood test should be lower than what they say the blood test should be. Some things might want to be higher, but it all depends, and it's so nuanced. So actually, if you want to learn more about potential deficiencies on a raw vegan diet, make sure you click the subscribe button right down below. Make sure you click the bell, because I'll have an upcoming video with Dr. Tim on raw vegan deficiencies and how to solve them, actually. All right, Dr. Tim, so you brought up T.C. Fry earlier in our interview, and I want to talk more about that because T.C. Fry was known as a natural hygienist, and there's still a natural hygiene society out there. I think they've renamed themselves these days. And there's a lot of people in natural hygiene, and maybe back in the day, natural hygiene was more about just like eating fruit and natural foods. But now, you know, I would say new natural hygiene, there's people like Dr. Goldhammer and Dr. Furman that started out in hygiene, and they've kind of taken it their own direction. So what say you about the original natural hygiene T.C. Fry style, as well as what direction have you taken it?
Good question. T.C. Fry was a student of Herbert Shelton. Shelton wrote books upon books about natural hygiene.
Oh, well, Tim, what is natural hygiene for people that don't know what it is? They think, oh, just brushing my teeth, I'm natural hygiene.
Okay, let's go into some history here. Natural hygiene was something going on, a natural movement to optimize health since the 1800s. And what happened was they had quite a popularity. It was about things like eating more fruits and vegetables and not eating prepared foods. And I'm not going to call them processed foods because the breads back in the 1800s are very different from the bread that we buy in the supermarket today. But they didn't like the prepared foods. They wanted more natural foods. And they found that fasting worked very well. And a lot of good common sense was brought in. We hear about hygiene, you know, brushing the teeth and taking a shower. But they actually stole the term hygiene, which is a basis on the Greek goddess Hygeia, which was about health, because natural hygiene was getting so popular and people didn't want to take the patented medicines of the doctors. And so they brought in hygiene to take care of you healthy, and it kind of diluted the idea about natural hygiene. So it goes through a lot of things, not just about food, but about getting your sleep, getting sunshine, getting exercise, things like that. There's been the idea about hygiene was to try to be as naturally healthy as possible. But back in the 1800s, back into the early 1900s, there wasn't a whole lot of science. And that science came up and at first poo-pooed natural hygiene. They knew better. They knew better that their canned goods and their prepared foods were just as good, but they weren't. And so what we ended up seeing is almost a dying out of natural hygiene for a long time. Then it started getting a rise back up with Herbert Shelton. And he taught not just foods, but a more natural lifestyle. And that took off. And doing things like drinking pure water and instead of tap water and things like that started blending in as well. And then one of his students, T.C. Fry, and then which branched out because he had his own course and way of teaching that was pretty extensive and became very popular with that. So then other doctors who were following Dr. Shelton created a natural hygiene society, And we see people like Dr. Goldhammer and Dr. Furman that John was just talking about, and they brought it to another level. They still do fasting, they still do things with whole foods, whole plant foods, and we see a great difference in people's health with that. And my hats are off to these two gentlemen and the others who have brought hygiene to the next level. Personally, I don't consider myself that much of a hygienist anymore because of all the myth that still rides in some of the enclaves of natural hygiene that we see today. A lot of people are saying, don't take B12 because we don't need it. We don't need to supplement anything. We don't need to test anything because it's just a snapshot. It doesn't really tell us what's going on in the body. I find some of these things are just myths, and there's no actual logic or science behind them. So I tend to go towards doing a more scientific analysis. The nutritional science back in the 80s when I first learned it was pretty rudimentary. Today, it goes into so many different areas, showing how much better we are with eating more fruits and vegetables, with doing things like getting our exercise and getting our sleep. That it's amazing. And then the microbiome, the gut microbiome, and how our gut keeps us healthy has just skyrocketed in the last 10, 20 years. And a lot of this actually proves that we need to be doing some of these very same things. Just recently, the global study on the disease burden did a big thing about why people die and what causes disease. And besides smoking and diabetes and a whole bunch of other things, they found the number one problem, even more so than smoking anymore, was diet. And the one thing in diet was people were not eating enough fruit. That's pretty big. That means that if we ate more fruit and vegetables, but mostly we're just not eating enough fruit to keep us healthy. That's a big deal to me. So, this is why I do what I do.
All right, Tim. So yeah, as you guys know, I'm big on fruits and vegetables, and I always want you guys to eat as many fruits and vegetables as you can. And they are the staple and primary source of my food, although I eat many other foods besides fruits and vegetables as well. So, Tim, what would you say to, there's some raw food teachers out there and people that teach about raw vegan and say, you don't need to take a B12 because we recycle it, and there's still, unfortunately, people out there. So people that are saying this, do you have any reason why they would continue to say this when the science totally proves differently?
Well, let's talk about.
And what would you tell them?
Let's talk about the science first. There is a study that a lot of people at Raw Food has put out there saying that we make our own B12. Our gut microbiome makes our own B12. Well, they're not looking into it because the study doesn't actually talk about we don't absorb it. Let's talk about absorption. Our stomach puts out something called intrinsic factor. It's how we absorb B12 via the stomach. It doesn't even go into the intestines. It is absorbed straight from the stomach. But there are people who are B12 deficient because they're not making intrinsic factor. And then you got things like PPIs for heartburn, medications for heartburn, that actually take away intrinsic factor, and so this is causing more of a B12 issue for a lot of the general public. But the colon, where our microbiome, our bacteria that make B12 reside, does not have intrinsic factor. So you can't take it in. And so there is the thought that you talked about, recycling. But the amount of recycling that is done of B12 as it goes from the liver, which accumulates it and puts it into the gallbladder and puts it into the intestines, can be reabsorbed. But if there's not enough there, it can't be reabsorbed if there's not, we're not putting anything out, because the body is trying to use every bit that it can. So the B12 issue is one myth that doesn't hold up with science. Why are they still doing it? Because it makes their sense. They don't want to take a supplement. They don't want to take something that has B12 in it. You know, they say that milk products have it, or meat has it, and so we don't need it because we don't think that that's healthy. You're right, it's not healthy. Milk products, dairy products, animal products are not healthy, and the science shows that. But the thing is that these people who are eating these very items are more so showing up B12 deficient. So it's not about that. It's about not taking a supplement. Well, there's supplementing, which I have no problem with, and there's stupid supplementing, which I do have a problem with. If you're just taking a pill because it's taking a pill, and you don't show up that you are actually deficient in something, there's no reason for the pill. And then most of the things that we see that are in the common everyday vitamins and minerals and nutrient pills, the supplements that we get, are synthetic and don't affect us the same way. There's a big push on things like getting folic acid. Well, folic acid is a synthetic folate, and the body can't deal with folic acid the same way it does with folate. And so just taking a pill doesn't make it any better, and may actually make it worse.
Yeah, I mean, some of the studies out there show that synthetic vitamins such as beta-carotene and folate can be problematic, actually. So I'd encourage you guys out there to always try to get your nutrients from food first, and then supplement as necessary if needed, or if you need, you know, for whatever other small reasons that may exist if you can't get that specific nutrient in concentration from your food. So, Dr. Tim, I want to ask you this. Will you share publicly how you literally went to the school of hard knocks about B12?
I believed in the myth. It made sense when you just see that one study saying that we make the B12.
And then also so many raw food teachers would say we make B12, so you're like, you believe them, right?
Again and again, throughout the decades, health teachers were telling us we don't need to take B12. And I looked at the science and I went, okay. So, and I may, because of my allergies, I may have been deficient in B12 since being a kid. And that could be problematic, you know, if you do your whole life without enough B12, and then you go vegan, which does not ensure that you're getting the B12 that you need. It could be very problematic. A little side note here. We do see that plants do take up B12 from the bacteria in the soil. But if you're buying your vegetables from the supermarket, it's taken at least a week, 10 days to get there. By then, the B12, which oxidizes so very quickly, is gone. So it might be partly a social our social organization of how we get our food. But getting our food, whole food, plant foods, is so much better than getting a processed boxed or canned food to start with. But so I went through, and I may have been deficient for most of my life because I was eating processed foods. I was allergic to everything else. So getting something that had less of it, broken down to where it's like white flour. And in fact, when I first started, I couldn't even have wheat. I had to have rice. So I had rice bread and rice cereal in the morning. But it was all processed. And that processing takes that B12, and very few foods, especially back in the 60s when I was growing up, had any supplementation, fortification of B12. So probably didn't get much. I was allergic to milk, I was allergic to a lot of things that would have had B12 in it. So I believe this myth of B12. Then I had a problem. About 20 years ago, I started reacting to some things, having problems. So I started getting tested, find out what the problem is. I came up with a homocysteine, which rises because you don't have enough B12 to break it down. And I got a homocysteine test, and it came back higher than most doctors have ever seen a homocysteine. So I went, okay, I get my folate, and my B vitamins, but I don't get B12, so let's test B12. Whoa, super low. Super, super low. That seemed to be the problem. But the damage had already been done. Seriously done. Homocysteine causes inflammation. Homocysteine is best known for a higher homocysteine, you have a higher rate of heart attacks. And it's the inflammation. It's the number one reason why vegans, I don't care if you're whole food or your processed food or your junk food vegan, whatever, have heart attacks. Lack of B12 is the number one cause because of the high homocysteine. Not only heart attacks, but just recently a new study came out showing how high vegans can have strokes. So I came into this with the highest homocysteine that a lot of doctors who I coordinated with had ever seen. It did damage. It did nerve damage, brain damage, organ damage, including skin, lungs, probably heart damage. I do get my heart checked out every once in a while just to make sure everything is good. But it kind of took me for a loop and took me down. It also caused chemical sensitivity. And so I really encourage people to test. If you don't want to take the B12, fine. Make sure that you got the B12. If you don't, consider supplementing. And I'm not a big person on the cyanocobalamin form of B12. It's cyano means cyanide. It comes from a bacteria that eats cyanide. It likes cyanide, it can produce cyanide, and it's not a good way of doing it. The body makes methylcobalamin, and even if you get too much, you can take that methyl donor and put it in to help with the other methylation cycle and make things work better for you. And that methylation cycle not only helps with many of the things in the body, but how you get rid of toxins. So it's very big. And all you have to do is test. I do recommend 3 tests though. I recommend 3 blood tests. Homocysteine, like what we talked about, a B12 assay, and methylmalonic acid. You might be getting a good amount of B12, but it might be something the body is not able to use, so your methylmalonic acid will be up. When it's down, we know that you're getting enough B12. But if your homocysteine is high and you still have a good B12, you need to know something else is going on. So I use the 3, the trifecta, and it really works very well.
So Tim, would you hold up your arm for everybody to show everybody? Because this meant a lot to me when you did that.
Okay, let's see if we can get it. I used to be so much worse, and I mean so much worse. I don't know if you can see it, because I barely, my tremors are much better than they were, but I still have tremors. I still have brain problems, but you know what? Studying and researching and doing all the work keeps my brain active, and so I can perform really well for somebody with as much nerve damage as I have.
So Tim, I want to, give you some respect for sharing this with other people so that, basically he went to the school of hard knocks, guys. He does not want you to do this. Once again, if you don't want to supplement, get tested first. Once again, the trifecta test to make sure, and if you're in need or if you want to know for sure, contact Dr. Tim. He'll help you get the blood test and consult with you. He does this so that you won't be deficient in B12. You won't have nerve damage, especially. B12 is just taking B12, but it's also got to get functionally utilized. That's what the homocysteine and methylmalonic acid do, and that's what he does. Now, the other comments I want to share is that I knew another raw vegan gardener who ate things out of his garden, right? It wasn't even picked from the store, that he didn't even wash, that was dirty. He also was deficient in B12. So do not rely on unwashed, dirty produce, because as a gardener, I've also learned that if your soil doesn't have the bacteria, right, that the specific bacteria that makes the B12, right, then your plants are never going to have B12. There's so many different bacteria that live in the soil rhizosphere, that's in the area where the roots live, right? That's why I actively put on all different kinds of bacteria in my soil. But even then, I don't depend on my unwashed produce, which, depending on which garden I'm at, I may not wash it. Depending on one garden, I may wash it just because the crazy environment. But nonetheless, I don't rely on that alone. I do take a supplement and encourage you guys also, if you don't want to just take a supplement to be safe, the best way, honestly, is to get tested. But then you got to get a blood draw and pay more money. And supplements are cheap. Blood draws cost some blood to be drawn out of you, which is another topic. Nonetheless, this is a very important topic. So thank you, Tim, for sharing your School of Hard Knocks with others and just being transparent about this and being honest. I think that's the most important thing I value about Dr. Tim, is that he'll tell it to you guys like it is, because he's been to the School of Hard Knocks like I have. All right, Dr. Tim, so another question I have for you is cooked food inherently toxic, as some raw vegans out there would say, or is there any case that it actually could be healthy?
Good question. Of course, you always get good questions. Optimally, I personally see that we get so much more from what nature provides, straight from the garden, the orchard. We know that the heat does damage to some nutrients. The science is there that heat does take out antioxidants, that heat does create toxins in itself, like acrylamide. We know that heat can cause a myelin situation, where it it locks up carbohydrates. The question about protein is a little bit iffy. There was some great science that was brought into the 70s, 80s, and 90s about how cooking actually locks up the amino acids between proteins. Locks up the amino acids which make proteins. And there are some juices or acid doesn't break it apart. But all of a sudden that science stopped. And I cannot find a reason why it stopped. The science still is out there. So there are some difficulties with heating foods. So I personally take in the idea that I don't need to be eating cooked foods. There are some studies as well. I'm going to take the famous tomato study. You knew this was coming, probably, huh?
I mean, there's a bunch more studies too, Tim. But
I know. Oh, there is. But let's just take the one that everybody talks about. They showed that cooking takes lycopene and makes it more available. So there is possibly some verification to a little bit of heat applied to some foods. Personally, I get enough tomatoes and my lycopene looks pretty darn good. In fact, probably better than somebody who eats spaghetti sauce every week. So I think I do pretty good with that. But it also comes into a personal situation. There are people who cannot get past letting go of their cooked foods. Sometimes it's a social situation. I can't go out and do my business without having to eat some cooked food somewhere. Or it might be that people who have digestive issues who find that eating fruit, let's say, causes problems. Let's go into some vegetables. People have problems doing cruciferous or legumes or something, and we don't want to eat legumes uncooked, okay? Sure, sprouting is one thing, and you can healthfully sprout legumes. Though there are other problems with legumes, and maybe we'll get to it another time. But don't just go out and get some red kidney beans and try to eat them raw. Please do not. You will kill yourself. It is toxic. But there are times that you have to be who you are and realize this is what I can do and this is what I can't do. This is what I'm willing to do and this is what I'm not willing to do. Or this is something that my body's limiting myself for now. Maybe I can go there later. I always talk about people just eating plant foods, whole plant foods. I don't try to push a raw diet because a lot of people I work with are not ready to go there or don't want to go there. But they will eat more plant foods and they see a benefit. And then, when they say, what can I do better? What's next? Haha, I gotcha. Then I say, eat more raw. And I'm sorry, the science keeps saying, eat more raw. There's the people who say, well, the bacteria and there's a chance for infection. But the real science says the more raw we eat, the better off we're at. The science will never go saying we have to eat exclusively raw, that's okay. Because you do the best you can. And that's where we need to go personally. It's not about this is the absolute and you have to go there. It is always great to know the best benefits of what you can do. But I find people struggle hard enough just to do plants and get well with just eating a plant exclusive diet, let alone something that is exotic, what they consider exotic, like a raw food diet. So there's a place. Is it perfect? I don't think any way it's perfect for any one person. I think we all have a different history. I mean, we weren't born perfectly healthy. Our parents have things, there's epigenetics, and there's genetics, and there's toxins that our parents take in, or our grandparents took in, or our great-grandparents take in, that are affecting us to start with. And then we have a history of how we were raised, what happened during our childhood. And those things really make a difference on how you can be affected by the food or how you can affect the food that you eat. So, is there a place? Yes. For me, I do no cooking at all, no heating, nothing. John does a little bit, and it works for him. And that's what works, is what works for you.
All right, Tim, yeah, excellent answer. So what I'd say is if you, and you guys who watch me regularly know that I have incorporated small amounts of heat processed foods, heated in very specific methods, so I don't create all the toxins and all these things, and I'm very intelligent and smart about it. And if you guys want to hear me and Tim debate on some more controversial topics that we may not agree upon, make sure you click the like button, right? Thumbs up this video, because I may do another video with Tim where we get into all these controversial topics where we have some disagreement, which is going to be a fun episode, so you can learn either side and see, you know, hey, you believe more Tim or more me, and I don't really care. I just want to give you guys all the information so you guys could make the most important and best decision for you, because we are all different, right? And that's what it is. And you know, surely there's major detriments to cooking. In most ways, people cook food is toxic. I do not recommend it, but there are ways to weave around and find a way, the healthy way to do it, which unfortunately most people don't do. And of course, you know, this is in proportion. It's not like I only eat heat processed foods. I eat, the majority of my food is still all raw. Today, actually, I've only eaten all raw. So it might have something a little bit heat processed later, but nonetheless, thumbs up this video. Maybe Tim and I will make a video with more controversial topics in the future. All right, so those of you guys that watch me know that I'm a big fan of juicing and, of course, vacuum blending. And so I want to ask Dr. Tim, is juicing and vacuum blending, or just traditional blending, because I see you have a traditional blender, without the vacuum, is that like the best way to increase nutrition, or is it a detriment to our health? Because it's like you're exploding nutrients with the blender, you're oxidizing it, or you're removing the fiber, some of the fiber when juicing. What's it?
I eat whole food. Okay. So I don't juice. I see. It takes what, about 8 oranges to make a cup of orange juice.
I don't recommend fruit juicing, actually.
Okay.
I do recommend blending it or eating it whole. I recommend juicing vegetables, especially greens.
Okay. But I'm going to still use the oranges as an example.
And I will juice oranges to add to my dressing that is blended up with nuts, seeds, and other herbs and spices.
I do a dressing the same way, but I don't
The whole
juice.
orange?
I do the whole orange.
Yeah, sure. I'll use whole tangerines that are seedless to do that also.
Ooh, yeah. That sounds
Just
good.
depends on the day, and if I got too many oranges, I just got to juice it to get rid of them. I don't know. And I want a different consistency.
Anyway, so it takes about 8 oranges to make a cup Valencia orange, I'm going to say. Navels is kind of hard to...
They're not as juicy.
They're not as juicy. Anyway, if you compare the proteins and the amino acids, just that in itself, of the whole oranges compared to the juiced, the cup of juice, there's so much more protein, so much more amino acids that you get from the whole fruit. And there's also more fiber. And yes, there is some fiber, especially if you just do the old hand crank or different types of juicing, whereas the centrifuge tries to take away as much pulp as possible. But what we see is we don't use the fiber, but our microbiome does. And there's evidence showing that around 100 grams of fiber a day is really optimal for health. Okay, the RDA is at 25. That's a big difference, people. But I like to see the fiber because I see people who are getting... American Gut Project puts out a thing showing, well, you know, some paleo people are getting as much as vegetarians are getting in fiber. Okay, but you're still getting 50 at best? 50 grams of fiber? I'd like to see higher than that. And we see some junk food vegans, and I'm sorry if that offends you, but to me, you know, that's kind of telling the truth. It's not real nutritional food that are getting, not even getting the RDA of fiber, but they're vegan and they're saving animals. Bravo for saving animals. I'm all in on that myself. I don't want to kill to eat. I don't want something to suffer so I can thrive. But there are things that, you know, that we see that we can use. So I don't find the juicing optimal. Yes, there is the oxidation, there is that. It's pretty minimal. But the same thing, people who do a lot of juicing criticize people who blend. Because of the oxidation. Because they're breaking up the fiber. I do not understand this argument personally. Blending allows people to get more fruits and vegetables in, as does juicing. And so I personally blend. I do. I make smoothies. And it helps get me through the day. And I like it. Am I going to put somebody down for juicing? No. Am I going to say going on a juice diet for months on end is healthy? No, I'm not going to say that. I'm going to say that it's not, because it's imbalanced. It doesn't work. So, yeah, you'll lose weight, but you know what? Every time you turn around, you know, somebody doing a this diet or that diet, and they lose weight, they finish with it and they come back and they gain the weight back and even more. I think eating a whole food, plant healthy diet allows your body to adjust things just right to where you lose the weight and you keep it off. I go with that. I personally do not juice, but I do blend. Otherwise, I'd be eating all day. If we go to other apes that are very similar to us, let's go to the bonobos. 98% of the DNA, the genes that we have, they don't juice. They don't blend. They sit there and eat all day. Of course, they take some rest and they play and they do other things, but they're constantly eating. Are they just eating fruit? I'm going to bring this up because I brought up bonobos. No! 49% of their diet are things other than fruit. Mostly leaves. So they're not eating just fruit, they're eating greens and fruit. Veggies and fruit. And I think that's where we need to go.
All right, Tim, great answer. Once again, thumbs this video up. We may have a controversial video in the future. We talk head to head. So the one point I want to make, Tim, is no matter which way you process your whole food, so whether you blend it, whether you vacuum blend it, whether you juice it, whether you pressure cook it, you will always lose something when processing your food. In the terms of juice, you're going to be basically selecting out the insoluble fiber that is kicked out by the juicer. When using a traditional blender that blends at high speed, you're keeping the fiber, but now you're removing oxygen-sensitive phytonutrients such as polyphenols that can be oxidized, as well as oxygen-sensitive vitamins. When you are steaming food, you're killing all the enzymes, but you're keeping still all the water. If you're baking food, you're losing the water and the enzymes, which is really bad, and creating carcinogens. So, that's what I want to really leave you with. Hey, whole foods is best, yes, and chewing things is definitely really important, and that should be the primary way. I don't just say only juice, and I recommend, like Dr. Tim, don't go on a long juice fast, because it's really, you're going to maybe lose some weight, but you're going to gain it back. More importantly, you're not going to learn how to eat properly and eat healthily.
Yes.
Juicing is small part of my healthy diet. I have like 1, maybe 2 juices a day, which are vegetable juices primarily, as well as I blend. I had a fruit smoothie yesterday, and I eat big salads and raw soups, and I have heat processed veggies, right? I don't just live on juices, and I discourage you guys from living on juices. There are too many people that do that mess up their digestive system, and while you may get some short-term gains, you're going to suffer in the long term. And unfortunately, there's some raw vegans out there that encourage long juice fasts so that they could coach you and make a ton of money off you. All right, Dr. Tim, another very important subject I wanted to ask you about is fermented foods. I know a lot of natural hygienists would say fermented foods are rotten food, they're not good for us, but then new research from like the Sonnenbergs would say fermented foods can, improve your microbiome. So what are your opinions on fermented foods?
It's a deep subject, and I try to keep it to a base minimum here. Fermented foods is what people did in ancient times to keep foods available for them year-round instead of just at harvest time. And it helped keep people alive. No argument there. But to incorporate it today, I see a lot of problems. You mentioned the Sonnenbergs. I have such deep respect for them. They taught me so much about the gut microbiome. But this is a place where I differ from them. We see that. Sorry, this is so.
This gets edited out, so just continue when you
so big. This is so big that it trying to
condense it down.
Condense it down is hard.
Challenging.
We find that the process of fermenting foods to keep it from going bad, they put things in like salt. They put in, let's just talk about the salt. Because of the fermented foods, we find a lot of people in the Orient have stomach cancer. In certain parts of the Orient, it is the number 2 killer. And it's because of the salt. The high sodium amounts devastate the intestinal tract, and the stomach and intestinal tract. We have a digestion system that is made to stop any bacteria from getting into our body so that we don't get sick. Now, if you're taking medications to lower your acid for heartburn, there may be a problem with that, but that's for another thing. But we see that the digestive system is one of the ways, and one of the biggest ways, that we keep from getting sick. They say that 70% of our immune function, and I won't use system, I use immune function because it's a whole body system. It's not just one thing isolated. But we find that 70% of the immune function is in the gut itself to capture things from getting in. So these things matter. So if you're eating something, are you getting really what you think you're getting? Are you getting the bacteria? Are they being replaced? Are they colonizing in the colon? And the answer is no. They're not. Our system is made to keep that from happening. Now, if there's some things getting into there in spore form, quite possibly you'll get in there, but then it's going from an oxygen situation to a non-oxygen situation in your gut. And some bacteria won't survive that either. And fermenting foods is an oxygen situation. These bacteria thrive on oxygen, so they don't get in either. So what are the benefits of fermented foods? You hear this all the time. My digestion has gotten better, this, that, everything is much better. It's because the bacteria that are being killed in the stomach still have metabolites. And those metabolites still get through the digestion, and they get into our system, into our digestive system, and start showing benefits. In other words, they create a really great environment. So, you're taking some fermented foods, and that fermented food may not give you any bacteria, but it will give you metabolites that keep E. coli from growing in your system. It keeps other things like viruses at bay. And so those metabolites are helping. But as soon as you stop having some fermented food, you start having problems because you still have not replaced the bacteria that needs to be in there. What gives you that bacteria? That bacteria grows when you feed it properly. When you feed it the things like inulin fiber and soluble fiber and the different things that it really loves to eat. Anytime you take an abundance out in nature, the things that thrive on that abundance thrive as well. That's what you need to do in the gut, and not have to have something that causes cancer or causes problems. Another problem can be that it decreases the lining of your gut. The vinegar or aldehyde can really do some damage, not only to the intestinal lining, but also to your liver. So these things are very big, and I think, you know, that the songbirds see that there's good effects on the gut microbiome, the environment of your gut, but they don't really see that even in their testing, their DNA testing, that what's coming through is the dead bacteria that cannot be recultured afterwards in their stool tests. So there you go. That's my scoop.
All right, Dr. Tim. Yeah, I mean, definitely you made some good points, and I would definitely agree on the salt aspect. Fermented foods with salt are not good. I do not recommend them. However, foods can be fermented without salt. I interview Sandor Katz, the fermentation expert, on my gardening channel. Link down below where I discussed this with him personally. And I guess the other thing I would say is that yes, kudos. Even like heat-killed bacteria, or you could basically make a fermented sauerkraut and then heat kill it, but then you wouldn't eat it because it's not raw. And then you're still going to get benefit from it. It's because the bacteria basically broke down some of the foods and made metabolites that may have a benefit to us. I will also agree that most of the bacteria that you may eat in fermented foods likely not to colonize, but can show benefit during transit, such as I take Ceramyces boulardii, fermented fruit drink, link down below to that video, that I could make in one day, that, you know, has been shown to have lots of benefits. So once again, you know, our opinions could differ on some things. Tim definitely makes some good points. And yeah, once again, thumbs up this video. We may have a video in the future about controversial topics such as this. All right, Tim, the next question I have for you is, has emerging nutritional science, because you keep up with the science unlike most raw vegans out there, has that changed or influenced, you know, some of your beliefs about raw foods or your specific diet these days?
Oh, for sure, for sure. There's a thought amongst raw foodists today, as well as 30, 40, 50 years ago, that protein is a minor nutrient. That you basically you've built a house, and sometimes you have a brick, let's say you have a brick house, and I'm using a certain hygienist story to this, and sometimes a brick gets broken and you have to replace it. This is protein, and that you really don't need that much protein. Well, the truth is that you can be protein deficient because every cell in your body, which recycles, but has protein in it. The cell wall is a glycoprotein. That's a glucose molecule with a protein molecule. So these things are constantly being changed. Our enzymes are literally proteins. Our vitamins are literally proteins. We need the proteins. Does that mean that we have to do the high amounts that people who claim meat is the best way to get your nutrition because it's high in protein? No. Does this mean that you have to do a bodybuilder's diet just to keep up the protein and get vast amounts? No. The science says that we need our protein, but the science also says that if you get too much protein, you shorten your life. So where do you go? You balance. You don't go one side or the other, you balance. And the science is there to guide us. Yeah, there's science out there that you have to watch as well. The science that is backed from the cattle industry, and the dairy industry, and the egg industry. They're always sponsoring studies saying that their way is best. And hey, the tobacco industry did the same thing and is still doing the same thing today, creating science. And by the way, the tobacco industry literally influences and owns the processed food industry. So you know where you're getting your information when you hear processed foods are just as healthy as anything else. It's usually because there's a study that's being funded by an interest. I'm not too worried about broccoli, personally. Big broccoli is nowhere near as influential as big meat. Anyway, yeah, what I see is people on a raw food diet are often touting, I get high antioxidants. Yes, you are getting much higher antioxidants than others. And at one time there was somebody came out with a vegan cookbook, a doctor, and I took their stuff, put together, and their ORAC levels, or a way that we measure antioxidants, was much lighter than mine. But then I tested, and I found that I was not getting enough. I hate to see what people on this vegan doctor's diet would have gotten. But I don't know. I know that I needed to up some of my antioxidants and not just rely on, I'm getting it, don't worry about it. So yeah, science has made a very big impact on how I eat. And because of that, I'm getting healthier. I'm getting over those problems I had because I was B12 deficient. I'm getting through things that other doctors who saw my results are saying, you're going to be disabled for the rest of your life. I refuse to take that as an answer. I'm going to do better, and I do, and it's because of science.
Thank you, Dr. Tim. Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. Unfortunately, so many, once again, raw vegans repeat dogma that they learned 20, 30 years ago from the book, and they have not changed based on the science. I think that is ludicrousy. So I encourage you guys to follow people like Dr. Tim and myself and other great raw vegan doctors out there like Drs. Rick and Karen Dina that also follow the science. And, to kind of keep up to date and modify the already amazing raw vegan diet to potentially even make it better than it was before, using some modern science, of course, also taking individuality into it as well. Dr. Tim, the next question I have for you is on nutritional supplements. I know you talked about B12 earlier, but are nutritional supplements an essential, like, boost to your nutrition, or is it just a money grab scam, like some raw vegans out there would say?
Yeah, maybe it's a little bit of both.
I would say it depends on the supplement. There's a lot of scammy ones out there and a lot of ones that'll hurt your health.
A lot of supplements out there don't even have what they
claim to have.
Yeah,
I agree with that too.
So there's a lot of toss up there. Do you just take something because you're supposed to? Take a B12. But because you're supposed to, I think you need to get your nutrition from your food, because it's a whole package. Your vitamin C relies on B vitamins. Your vitamin C relies on magnesium. Your vitamin C relies on proteins as well. And you don't get everything in a pill. Okay, there's There's pills out there saying, well, we powdered the fruit and the veggies, and all you need is one pill, and there you go, you're good for the day. I'm sorry, my nutrition is far more nutrition than what you find in a pill. And I don't see people getting well on taking multiple supplements. They don't. But they do get well on eating plant foods, whole plant foods. And that tells me a lot right there. Then there's this thing. Sometimes we end up deficient. And if you can't get it from the food, then maybe, like B12, maybe you do need a supplement. Testing tells us if we are actually deficient. And so we use that. So are you just doing supplement to do supplement? Are you doing supplements to take care of a deficient diet or a junk food diet? Because you want to still live around, but you don't want to change your ways. That doesn't work, and it's been proven again and again and again. And it seems like every 5 years a new study comes out saying this doesn't work. If you're not eating properly and you're supplementing, you're still getting all the problems that you had before. You're just spending a lot more money on your supplements. And so, and then one of my big pet peeves is the supplements, even if they have something in it, are mostly fillers and additives and things that don't work for us. How many people need some chemical because it made it flow better through the company's way to make the pill? No. I like purity. Even if there is a supplement, maybe you need to get a measuring spoon and measure it out instead of taking it in a pill. Sometimes you have to do that. People with multiple chemical sensitivity can't handle some of the additives that they put in supplements. They're not healthy. And so, are these things working? It's all about getting the bottom line is get it from your food, see if it's something that, if there's something more that you need and there is a supplement, fine, do it. And some of the supplements are not really that far off. Take acerola cherry. There are people in this world that I've worked with who are having problems getting citrus and some of the other natural supplies of vitamin C, where they can get freeze-dried acerola cherry powder, which is really healthy. It may not be perfectly whole food because there's no water in it, but it's very close, and it's a whole lot better than taking a synthetic vitamin C pill. And it works. And so it all depends on how things work. But if you have something like homocysteine overload, that vitamin C becomes really, really essential, because vitamin C is nature's antihistamine. So this is what you need to do. Sometimes it's a supplement. Better if it's whole food.
All right, Dr. Tim. So I know some people out there thinking, well, what supplements does Dr. Tim take? We know he takes a B12 because he was B12 deficient, but what supplements do you take, Dr. Tim?
I won't tell you.
Why?
Because you think what works for me will work for you. It doesn't happen that way. Test and find out what you need, and if you need anything at all. You know, it's not about just taking a supplement because it's supposed to be healthy. Come on. There's a whole lot of people telling you, you got to do this, you got to do that to be healthy. Go back to what you understand. Everybody knows, eat more fruits and vegetables to be healthy. Everybody knows that. It's intrinsic in us. We know it. You know that movement is better than sitting on your duff. You know that getting enough sleep, it feels a whole lot better the next morning than if you didn't get enough sleep. These are things that are essential. And it doesn't mean that it has to be a doldrum either. That means if you need to move, go outside and enjoy nature and have fun. Fun is a great way to move. So, there you go. It all works together. You know what is right. Don't try to shortcut it. There's no magic pill.
Yep, no magic pill. And actually what I'll say, Dr. Tim, is that's one of the wisest answers I've heard to that question. What supplements should we take, right? Test to know. And if you don't know how to get tested, contact Dr. Tim. He can help you get tested and read your blood test to ensure that you're only going to take the right supplements if you even need any. Or he's probably going to actually recommend, before you take these supplements, why don't you eat these foods, because we could solve your issues without the supplements with just food, because you're not eating this food or that food or whatever food it is. So yeah, wise words, thank you. All right, next question for you, Dr. Tim, is one of the common beliefs out there in the raw foods world is that fruit is the ultimate food and we shouldn't even eat any other foods because fruit is God, it's our species-specific food. Should we only eat fruit and should we just not even eat any other foods because they're all junk compared to fruit because fruit is elevated? Or is fruit overblown?
We need fruit, as I've said before. Fruit has been shown to be one of the biggest things that we lack in our diets across the world. Really is a good part of our diet. Are they superfoods? I don't think I know a real superfood. To me, a superfood would be something that's all you need. And no animal in nature just eats fruit. The bonobos, again, are our closest DNA match. Don't eat fruit exclusively. Chimpanzees eat a little bit more fruit than bonobos do, but they're not exclusive. They eat fruits and leaves and things they find on the ground. So there's no one species that eats just fruit. But the bonobos have a digestive tract that's almost identical to us. Almost. It's a little bit different. They produce the same enzymes, same digestive juices, and have about the same transit time. That tells me that we need more than just fruit. When I see people who eat just fruit, I see some deficiencies. Protein being one. I also see them usually trying to take things because they take some powders and potions because they have cravings for greens. I find that strange. You're going to take a green powder instead of eat a whole food. And it doesn't make natural sense. You find powders in nature? No. You can find some pond scum. What they call algae, which isn't algae. And I'm going to get into a controversy here probably. What we see when we get algae blooms in lakes and ponds or even in the oceans, it's not algae, it's cyanobacteria. And we have some people who do high fruit or high fat that do some blue-green algae or some spirulina or chlorella. And these things are actually very toxic, but they make you feel so good. The cyanobacteria produces a chemical called phenylethylamine, that is actually a stimulant, a serious stimulant. And it can actually harm the nervous system. So I do not recommend doing that instead of just eating some greens. I eat a high fruit diet. My calorie content primarily is fruit. But I eat 3 pounds of greens or more a day. And I don't have the nutrition deficiencies that I see in the so-called fruitarians. We are not fruitarian, we are frugivores. This is the proper scientific basis, meaning that we eat a lot of fruit. We're not herbivores. We don't have 4 stomachs and eat grass. We are not carnivores. We don't have this really short digestive system so that the meat and the animal parts don't putrefy before they get out. We are not omnivores because we don't have the higher digestive hydrochloric acid that breaks down the animal proteins that true omnivores do. So we are frugivores. It makes sense that we eat primarily fruit. But we also need other things to make that balance. It's always about balance. You're doing an extreme over here, that means that there's a problem over here. So let's bring it together and find balance in the middle.
Wow, couldn't have said it better myself. All right, Dr. Tim, this is a topic that it's near and dear to my heart, and we'll see how it is to your heart. So, I'm a big fan of eating organic food whenever possible. Most of my diet is homegrown, beyond organic, or organic. I think I eat like probably 90% of everything I eat is organic, with a few small exceptions of Clean 15 or exotic jackfruit or dragon fruits you pretty much can't find organic.
No, you can't.
Unless you grow it yourself, which I am growing jackfruit trees. But nonetheless, a lot of people on a raw vegan diet still eat just a lot of conventional food. Is that going to harm them in the long run? Is conventional food, toxic, terrible? I mean, what would you say on the whole organic versus conventional debate? And which one do you choose yourself?
I'm going to put a little extra to this. Conventional produce.
Right.
Conventional whole plants. Or organic whole plants.
That's what I meant.
Yeah, I know that's what you meant, but I want to make sure that this is very clear, because people go out there and say, oh, look at this package. It's organic. No.
It's still packaged garbage.
It's still something that you should not be eating. We were never meant to eat.
Organic cereal.
Organic cereal. I eat exclusively organic. There are times when I can't find it, and chances are I will just forgo. John makes a good argument about getting variety. No, I have not had, I don't think I've ever had an organic jackfruit. I have had organic durian, and I found it not as superior as getting a frozen durian off of the Asian market. Much better there. But I haven't had durian for years because I can't find it organic. What else? But I work with people who are sick, okay? That's who I work with. The people who have chronic illness. And I know that Parkinson's, diseases like Parkinson's, which can be created from pesticides alone, okay? And I know that if you take somebody who's eating a plant-exclusive diet and put them on an organic diet, they improve. Hands down, they improve. Same with other neurological diseases like MS. Take them off commercial produce and give them 100% plant, organic food, they improve. I see people with allergies because these things. But I'm also very big on getting rid of store-bought laundry detergent and cleaning chemicals. The EPA says that the indoors of your house is far more polluted than the outdoors. These things have to be addressed. And we're getting more and more chemicals put into our environment. And as that goes along, adding more to your food is probably not the best idea. Now, if you have cleaned up your house and you have done some other things, you don't wear perfumes and hair care products that have phthalates in it, or skin products that have other chemicals in it, can you get away with a little bit of extra variety and benefit? Yeah, I pretty much guarantee that. But for the most part, there was a time when I used to go on lecture tours. And I would stay with people who were raw foodists and who were in the program, I guess you would say. And I'd go in their bathroom and there would be a Crest toothpaste and a Scope mouthwash, and I could smell the laundry detergent, and I could get in their car and I could smell the air freshener, which wasn't fresh at all. And I'm going, we have some work to do here. So it's relative. You know, my friend John here, I can pretty much guess, I don't have to go into his house. He has a lot of clean things going on that are not toxic. So him having a little bit of variety, I cannot put down, because variety makes a difference for a lot of people. If you're just, doing a banana and a romaine salad at night, or a banana and romaine diet, you're not going to get everything that you need. Sure, you're going to get some omega-3s because they both have omega-3s. And the romaine has got some pretty packed omega-3s in there. But are you going to get everything? Probably not. We know that no animal survives on a mono diet itself. So, well, I guess koala bears kind of do. Eucalyptus leaves. But I think they do actually eat something else. I don't know. I haven't looked into it. Something for me to do. But as far as I know, there's really no species that survives on a mono diet. So the variety is very important. I get 30 different varieties of food in a week, or sometimes more. And John's pointed out to me that there's people who get far more than that. 40, 50 different items. But you have to look at, yes, one of those items is probably a little bit of cilantro to garnish the salad, or a little bit of this spice or that herb. And does that really make that much difference? I don't know. But a good variety means let's get, a handful of this green over here, or 5 or 6 of these fruits over here that I haven't had lychee for a long time because I haven't found it here available, and we don't have a tree, and it's not warm enough to grow here. So I miss lychee, and if there's a chance I ever get, if there's a lychee, especially organic, I'm going to grab it and I'm going to run because I like the variety. And so it's a little bit of both. It's not either or. It's a little bit of both. Again, it's going to come back to balance. Produce from Mexico and China, for me personally, I don't, even if it's organic, I don't touch.
Wow.
There was an audit done back, 15 years ago? So it might have changed, but that both places, the organic produce was retested once it got into the United States and did not pass the organic standards. And we know that both places there is a lot of bribery and dishonesty and problems with things that they both have had problems with pesticides. Both because pesticides are in the water, primarily. Even if there's an organic farm, they may be watering with pesticides. Anyway, so it comes up. And because I'm very chemically sensitive personally, I find sometimes I actually react to produce coming from Mexico or China. So I just stay away from it. I'm very sensitive, and I understand there are people who are not. And if it means the difference of you not eating a whole plant food, then I would eat it, because the other alternative is far worse.
Yeah, so I think what it comes down to is individual preferences and sensitivities. Of course, if you're eating something organic from Mexico and you're breaking out, stop eating it, man. And I mean, here's my opinion on this. I mean, Tim, in general, my personal opinion is that although I buy stuff that is labeled organic in the store, how do I really know it's organic? I don't. I mean, I know everything I grew in my backyard is beyond organic. I know certain farms that I visit and their practices, and I look in their sheds and see what they're spraying on their crops. They're organic, or they're not spraying the toxic stuff, so I'm all right with it, right? But otherwise, you just really got to trust the system, which I have a big problem with the system. So, I mean, in general, I definitely tend to not try to buy things from China unless necessary. I do tend to trust organically grown in Mexico a little bit more, especially if it's from a major brand such as Earthbound or such as Del Cabo. They make these little tomatoes, because those are like good brands that I trust. But then again, you never know. So once again, I think it comes down to do the best you can, guys. If it's organic, hey, I'd always prefer that over conventional. locally grown. Shop your farmer's market, grow your own garden. That's even better, and get to know your farmer. Get to visit their farm and walk in their freaking shed to see what they're spraying on stuff and ask them. That's what I do. But you guys aren't going to be crazy as I am.
I've done that as well. And I've actually gone to the farmer market and they said, this is my organic produce, and they sell it as organic. And I went there and I went to their barn and I see labeled on top, pesticide upon pesticide.
That sucks.
And I stopped buying from this farmer at the produce market, the farmer's market.
Yeah, so, you just got to trust people and, once again, check people out and ask them, can I visit your farm? If they say no, then that's definitely a red flag.
Yeah.
Because if they didn't want you going there, what's up with that? All right, Dr. Tim, so you're one of the few doctors literally in the raw foods movement that actually kind of keeps up with the science. And so I know you are aware of the microbiome and some of the science out there. You've mentioned the Sonnenbergs, in this episode. And so how has your diet changed based on the microbiome, and how has your, helping of other people, your partners in health that you work with to get them better, how has that changed what you're telling them based on the science of the microbiome specifically?
I'm going to say some of the things that have helped me. I've done microbiome testing, and I did a lot of research before I did. I looked through it, and there's a lot of, don't need a doctor, we have a microbiome test for you to do at home, and you send it back, and we send you a whole bunch of results. I find these cheap stool tests that are not good. The recommendations are really way off. The amount of actual testing that they do is little. They might give you 12, 14 different bacteria and say, well, these are the main bacteria that we test. And no, you need something that does a comprehensive, full bacteria spectrum. That makes quite the difference. Usually it has to take a doctor to get, there are ways. I use a specific lab that is certified, state certified in several states.
And it's one regular doctors would use. It's not like some hokey dokey.
No, it's not. It's something that you can find doctors in your area by going to this company and requesting the list of doctors that use this test. So I go with that. I got textbooks on this stuff, and I've looked, and I start seeing some things, and I'm going, oh, okay. So I started testing myself. Both me and my wife tested, and we test on a regular basis, pretty much yearly. And we start seeing problems, we ate a really good healthy diet, we thought, but our tests come back showing dysbiosis. Whoa, I thought this was,
Yeah, the raw vegan diet's perfect as it is. You don't got to adjust it. Just eat whatever raw and you're good. Everything's perfect.
Yeah, but it's not.
It's not.
Okay,
That's why you got to test.
We don't live in a perfect world. But so we started looking into it, and okay, I know that the bacterium Akkermansia, thank you. I knew I wasn't saying that right. That it helps build the gut lining and keeps you from having intestinal permeability. I didn't have any. Okay.
You didn't have any Akkermansia?
I didn't have any. Zero. Nothing could be found. Okay, what do I need to do? Okay, they require resistant starch. That's their primary food. I was just eating fruit. I wasn't getting any resistant starch. Most starch people, just a side note, most starch people are not getting resistant starch either. Okay? It takes, you eat a potato or you eat some rice and you don't get any resistant starch from that. Now if it cools and it's been sitting there for a while, you get some resistant starch. But people usually eat their baked potato hot. So we started adding a banana, a green banana, a day to our diet. One green banana in a smoothie. You don't really taste the difference in your smoothie.
If you ate it, you'd taste the difference.
If you ate it, you would taste the difference. It's very starchy.
And it has to be green as possible, because once they start to ripen up, the resistant starch basically just
goes away.
Yeah.
But we started doing that, and our akamasha just thrived.
Small changes.
Small changes.
Adjustments, but you would have never known unless you had a microbiome test.
Right. We also noticed that our ruminococcus was low. And I'm going, wow. And ruminococcus is one of the short-chain fatty acids, a very, very beneficial metabolite from bacteria. It helps heal the gut, it helps heal your arteries, it does these miraculous things. Anyway, we were quite getting enough butyrate.
So your butyrate production was low.
Our butyrate production was low. So we added a little bit of sunchokes.
Juice from artichokes.
Juice from artichokes. And guess what happened? Everything started looking really great. And we found that we weren't getting enough inulin in, which is what is the basis of the sunchokes. Chicory root also has a good amount of.
Jicama has some, less, as well as
yacone. Bananas have a little bit. And I eat a good amount of bananas, but I was still low. So these things started adding up. Turned a not bad stool test results into a almost perfect stool test result. These things make a big difference.
So what health differences did you notice before and after, Tim? Anything? It's good to show the results on paper, but how did that affect you differently?
For the most part, there wasn't a whole lot of big changes. They were small. You notice that things ran a little bit better in your transit time, in your ability to have a bowel movement.
So like evacuate easier.
You evacuate easier. Little things were there. But the big things that you will see aren't something that you see in a day-to-day basis. You see it in the long term. This is what I see in people when I can give them a little more inulin. I see allergies go away because things are starting to go. And the same with a little bit of green banana. You see the allergies dissipate really quickly, but to me, really quickly dissipating allergies, 6 months, to where they can start going back to eat good food that they were allergic to before. These are the differences. These are the great things that really make the difference, that make a health.
So this is great that you're seeing short-term benefits, even within 6 months, I would consider short-term. But I'm sure you've looked into science, Dr. Tim, about long-term. So long-term, they basically say we're supposed to have some of these foundational species in our microbiome, some of which is Rhumacoccus and Akkermansia, so that we could have a healthy, longer life and live more disease-free. So The question is, do you believe that having a dialed-in microbiome will lead to a longer, healthier life in the future for somebody? And make you more resistant potentially to some diseases? Because if you're not having a leaky gut, then you're going to be more resistant to not getting some, bacterial infection in your blood because it's not going through your stomach, I mean, so what are your thoughts on this?
The immune function of the body can either be wore out or ready to fight. We have a tendency to say, oh look, this person has a healthy white blood cell count. If you take a look at me, at least, I don't know about you, but I'm guessing you've had a CBC.
Of course, done many times.
And I'm going to guess that things like your lymph is a little bit light.
Generally low.
Generally low. Because we're not overusing it. And it's not compared to the general public. We find that if you're more apt to have a healthy immune function, then you're able to deal with things later in life. They say that the elderly have less resistance against infections. Why is that? Because the elderly have worn out and are using up their immune function so much that they don't have enough to fight oncoming onslaughts, like an infection. I mean, they're keeping the infection out, but we also see that the elderly have things like sarcopenia, which is muscle loss, and they're not getting their protein absorption as high as they were when they were younger. I think because we also find that the elderly also have less digestive enzymes. And if you have less enzymes, you're not breaking things down properly. And it goes on and on. But what if you were getting optimal nutrition and you're getting to actually save the ability for your body to react to things? This is big. It makes a difference in longevity in the microbiome. We know that just from the metabolites, I'm gonna pick on a metabolite from E. coli. Everybody says, oh, we all have E. coli. We do.
And there's different kinds of E. coli.
There's different kinds of E. coli.
Only we just think of the ones that are bad.
We hear about the ones that are bad, but we also have a commensal E. coli. But
it could flip bad.
It is opportunistic.
Exactly, it could flip bad.
And that opportunistic means that it will thrive if things like lactobacillus and other good bacteria are not thriving. E. coli, I don't care what strain it is, produces something called lipopolysaccharides. LPS.
That's why you don't eat meat. One of many reasons.
One of the many reasons. And yes, and animal products have LPS in them, lipopolysaccharides, across the board. So this happens to be an inflammatory that should never be in our bodies to start with. And wow, it really does damage. And if the microbiome is not set right, then we start seeing more lipopolysaccharides into our system, causing more damage. Now we're looking at breaking down The cells are breaking down, the organs are breaking down, your functions are breaking down. This is going to keep you from living longer. Bottom line.
Optimize.
It's about optimizing everything.
Yep.
And health is not being without disease. Health is being optimal.
Yep.
And so I go with that. And having an optimal digestive system, including the microbiome, can make all the difference. Hippocrates, and everybody quotes this quote, but I'm going to quote it again. Hippocrates said, all disease starts in the gut. So this is where you need to start.
Wise words. Thank you. All right, Tim, so the last question of this interview today, because you guys have been watching, you're dedicated, so give yourselves a pat on the back. But, diet is just one component, actually a pretty small component, but a very modifiable component of health. So, Tim, what other components are very important for our health that people should pay attention to, in your personal opinion?
There's a whole list. But I'm going to cut it down to some very small things. Getting the sleep you need is really essential. I can't overemphasize the need for sleep. And the science says that most of us don't get it. It helps your body recover. There's something in your skull called the lymphatic system. It's kind of like the lymph system in the rest of the body, but it cleans out the brain. And we know that when the lymphatic system doesn't work very well, you start seeing things like dementia and Alzheimer's and other problems. The lymphatic system works mostly when we're asleep. It's big. And dementia and Alzheimer's is not an old person's disease. It actually starts in the 20s, maybe even earlier, when things start not working. Same as heart disease. Since the 60s we started seeing children with plaque buildups in the arteries. This is not old-timers' disease. This is something that starts when we're very young. So let's get some sleep, let's get some movement in. I'm not going to, I don't like the word exercise. I exercise a lot. But I think that exercise, moving the body, your lymph system is moved by your muscles. The lymph system is the cleanup, the trash, the garbage collectors. They're the ones that take it and take it to the liver, and the liver can process it and get rid of the toxins. So movement is essential. We know that movement is essential for the brain. We know that this is one of the most fantastic studies I ever thought about, I ever found, was that people who were depressed either went on to antidepressants or they went into exercise program. And I'm speaking specifically about serotonin, so SSRIs, on the medical side, and serotonin on the exercise. The people on the exercise had the same amount of serotonin as the SSRIs, the drug people, and they had better ability to deal with depression or it left them compared to the SSRIs, the antidepressants.
Why don't doctors tell us to move instead of take drugs?
Because they are taught and they are brainwashed and they are pushed to push the drugs onto us.
But there's another way.
There is another way. And you know what? It doesn't have side effects. Okay, maybe you might get some achy muscles. Maybe you need to back off a little bit. But for the most part, hey, let's do this right. Because SSRIs often fail after long periods. Why? Because they tell the body to keep and make serotonin, but we're not giving it something to make the serotonin with. And there's a reason why everybody's short to start with. And so exercise helps create that serotonin, and you're not pushing it to stay around. And that means you're going to have more later. Another thing that I think is really vital is being outside, being in nature. They call it forest bathing now, thanks to Japan. They actually have a program, a forest bathing program, where they encourage people in the city to go out, and they actually do scientific studies, taking them out and putting them into nature, and the difference. One of the things about nature is it's a stress buster. It brings it down. The other things about stress, we need to sit and have stress reduction. When I was in medical school, I took a class on biofeedback. It was kind of new, it's kind of, but they were using it and they're finding some really great things. And it goes from the scope of relaxation. They have instruments that can see if you're relaxing or not, all the way to your brain waves and see what your brain waves are doing, or if you have hypertension, you can lower your hypertension, or you can actually manipulate your blood pressure or your temperature or all these other fantastic stuff. I went in because I had migraines, and I found a way to relieve my stress without taking a pill. And I felt better. But you don't have to go all the way to biofeedback, though biofeedback is a heck of a lot better than taking a pill. You learn yourself how to treat yourself, how to know what relaxation feels like. But there's also meditation. There is also other stress reliefs that can really help. Sometimes it's counseling. But find some way of stress relief, because stress is a killer. We find that more people have heart attacks on Monday morning than any other time. And I'm saying people, I'm not talking about men, which have more heart attacks, but women too. And why is that? Because they've been relaxing for the weekend, supposedly, and then they hit it Monday morning, and they get all stressed out about, because they were feeling relaxed before. They have more heart attacks on Monday morning than any other time. That's big. And we also find that stress reduction helps in healing a lot of the neurological diseases. And we have a lot of evidence that shows that stress reduction actually keeps certain hormones like cortisol and adrenaline down, which keeps us from destroying our nervous system and our other organs and systems, including cardiovascular system. So it all ties in together. So those are the big ones for me, though some people just kind of write them off and say, well, I don't have time for sleep, or I don't have time for exercise. I thrive on stress. People who thrive on stress die early, so that gives me where to go. So those are the biggies for me. I mean, you can get sunshine is really important as well.
Fresh air, as we're sitting in a room with multiple air filters.
Yeah, fresh air, and I'm glad you noticed that. Thank you.
And the doors open, so we got a fresh breeze coming in.
Yeah, but
I got the same air filter myself. So.
Cool.
Great minds think alike.
I did some research on air filters, and again, I go back to the EPA saying that the indoors is much more polluted than the outdoors. But there's things that we have open windows, but all it takes is one of our neighbors to be running a dryer sheet in their dryer, and their chemicals are coming into our house.
Yeah.
So we need a little bit of protection. So those kind of things, and again, leading into that, stay away from chemicals.
Yep.
Most chemicals are considered gross, or generally considered safe, and they're not. They are.
It just means they're not tested.
That means that they're not tested. Exactly.
They're just accepted to be safe because there's no testing to show otherwise.
Because they were brought into this program, they were out in the public before the program started to test. So that would be way too many things to test. So we're doing okay with it. So let's just consider them safe.
Until proven otherwise, which the companies are not going to prove otherwise, obviously.
Companies are not going to prove otherwise. Companies are even trying to take the ones that are proven to be dangerous to us and saying, but they're okay, that's fine. Well, they're making profit at our expense, at their expense. So reduce the chemicals. Reduce the chemicals. It's a big deal. So that's pretty much the biggies.
All right, yeah, sounds like we got all the biggies there, and you guys learned so much in this episode today, not only about modifying and adjusting your diet, about getting tested, whether it's through blood testing, microbiome testing that Dr. Tim can do, whether it's about things not even having to do with diet, how to clean your air with some air cleaners, leave your window open, get out to nature, get better sleep, guys. You don't have to eat anything different. Just get to sleep a few hours earlier. Make sure you sleep in a nice black, dark room with no additional noises in general. I mean, some people maybe help with a white noise or something like that. But you learned so much from Dr. Tim this episode. I mean, this guy is a smart guy. That's why I wanted to have him on and do this more long format video for you guys. Because the other thing I wanted to let you guys know is that, I may interview a lot of people on my show, but actually Tim is here because he will work with you as well. I know there's some of you guys out there that have eaten a raw food diet, raw vegan diet, and haven't gotten the healing you're looking for, right? Maybe you've been scared to get a microbiome test or a blood test because you're scared of the results and you don't know how to interpret them, right? That's what Dr. Tim is here to do. He is here to help you, guide you, take your hand, because his brain is full of knowledge, research, published studies, literally started in 1990, 35 years now of living this lifestyle, helping many people, working in partnership with them to get them healthy. So he has a lot of background experience. Plus he writes all these long articles where he researched specific health situations. He recently put out one on lupus, right? So if you guys want to work with Dr. Tim, how can somebody learn more about you, your work, and even, get some testing or work with you in partnership so that you could get them even healthier than they are today by literally, once again, like we talked about, dialing in your raw vegan diet. That's what I've been doing on my own, and I don't take on people to help because I'm just doing it for myself, but Tim's here to help you to do that.
Thank you. Yeah, there's a lot of people out there who coach you to do a raw food diet, that will help you do a raw food diet. I'm sorry, I'm probably not one of those to do that. What I do is I deal with people with chronic disease. And people who've tried everything, or the experts have said, we've done all we can, and they don't know where else to go. They come to me. So far, I have a pretty good running rate. It's not perfect, not everybody can get well, but I think you're worth a try. When I start with somebody, and I start working with somebody, I get all your medical information, and I pound you, can you get me this, can you get me that? Because I want to see the MRIs, I want to see the other testing, I want to see reports that the doctors have given you. Then I do an in-depth history on you, and I work on your. I ask you to fill out a form on your diet. It's a full week of every little thing, and I take that and I make an analysis of it, and I take a look at it, and I share it with you. Everything I do is a shared experience. And so that we work together. I'm not telling you what to do, you're telling me what you can do, and you're telling me what you see in what I reveal to you in, like say, the blood test, or what I found in research. Every single person is different. So there is no protocol. There can't be. Because you are an individual, and what works for one person probably doesn't work for you. So we have to find that answer. So the first thing I do can be 20, 40 hours of my time before we even see each other face to face on a video conference, let's say, or something. So I get into the intricacies about what's going on. Then I decide what testing you didn't get that we could use, and we send you off to do some testing, and you come back, and then we share that, and we put together a plan at that point. We actually the whole thing is a building of a plan, and from the very first step, I say, hey, maybe this could be changed, maybe this could be changed, what do you think? And I give you the reasons why, and you can give me reasons why you don't think that would work for you, and we can work that together in partnership. I'm not trying to be some doctor that's on a pedestal. I want to be with you in the mucks of it all. So that's what I do, and I like testing because it keeps me from guessing. And if I guess, we might get somewhere, but chances are we're going to have to do guess after guess after guess, and it's wearing down on your health. I like to do it quick and easy and find answers for you. So that's what I do. You can find my website. My website is restorehealth.info. You can find me on Instagram and on Facebook. Hopefully soon on YouTube.
And on Instagram and Facebook and all those, is it still Restore Health?
It's Dr. Timothy Trader, or Tim Trader, Dr. Tim Trader.
I'll put the links down below.
And on there, primarily what I'm doing now is every week I try to find a new study that has not made the news primarily, but it's a new study that has something to do with health. It could be exercise, it could be sleep, it could be a lot of diet, because new stuff is coming out all the time about diet. And it's something that tells you the science is actually happening. And it also tells you that I'm always looking for the new science to help you. I also tell you if I have an interview, and when this interview is up, I will have it on my social media to tell you that John has been so gracious as to give me the time on his channel to share with you what I do. So that's how you get connected with me. Or if you want to know who I am, it's on the website. If you want to give me an email, it's on the website. And we can connect. And if we do or we don't, I hope the best of health for you across the board.
All right, Tim, great. So it sounds to me like you could help people that have been turned down or haven't gotten help from other doctors out there, like maybe not like incurables, like people, and then they could come to you and you could help them out potentially. What about somebody that like just wants to they're on a raw vegan diet and they want to optimize a little bit, learn about their microbiome, get some blood tests and make sure they're not B12 deficient? Will you help them do that also?
I can. What I do is I can recommend a couple of tests, or what they call a kit, which is a group of tests, and I can recommend them. And then for a charge, I will go through them, and we can talk about what the results mean. So that is also something that I do. Even if you have a whole bunch of regular blood tests and you just say, I need to know what this means, and I think maybe I might have a little bit more advantage of understanding some of these than Dr. Google.
Well, yeah, you've been working in this field for decades now, so. Yeah. So if you guys want to learn more about Dr. Tim or connect with him so he can help you optimize your health or even hopefully get you even better than you are today, links down below to his website as well as his social media. So after this long episode, one of the longer ones I've done, hey, if you guys enjoyed this episode, please be sure to give this video a big thumbs up. More importantly, share this with other people that are out there that are looking for deep raw food knowledge that you're literally not going to hear on any other channel. I'm deeply connected in the movement with many of my friends that I've known over the many years, like Dr. Tim and many others that I'll always have when I see them in person. I don't like to do Zoom interviews like other people out there. Also, be sure to click that subscribe button right down below so you don't miss my new upcoming episodes. I'll be coming every 5 to 7 days. You never know where I show up. You'll be learning what new knowledge bombs or what new cool, amazing people and interviews I'll be sharing with you guys, and I wouldn't want you to miss any single episode. Also, be sure to check my past episodes. The past episodes are a wealth of knowledge. Over 700 episodes at this time on the channel dedicated to teaching you guys all about how to eat more fresh fruits and vegetables and other plant foods in the best ways possible. So with that, my name is John Kohler with OKRaw.com. We'll see you next time, and until then, remember, keep eating your fresh fruits and vegetables. They're always the best.